Redman. I want to thank you so much for joining me here on Christiana's Psychic Cafe. How are you?
I'm terrific today, and I'm so pleased to meet you after talking to you on Facebook, for the last 2 years. Yeah, this is great.
I know. And, this is why people will say all kinds of bad things about social networking, but I love it because I don't think our paths have ever crossed other than.
No, you're in Florida. I'm right now in New Mexico, and I think when I first met you, I was living in Bali. So isn't this terrific? I love Facebook too. So.
Absolutely. So we have so much to talk about. You are the designer of the as yet unpublished Bali Tarot deck, and you've lived in Bali, which in my mind is like one of the top 5 really beautiful exotic places to live.
Wonderful.
So I want to hear about that. And it occurs to me you are one of the people who really have been doing the work of a tarot reader. And if I understand right, you are still actively reading tarot in your life, isn't that?
Every day.
Yeah, me too. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about how you got your start. There's so much I want to talk about.
Ask away.
Well, so let's go back. Let's get into the Wayback Machine. And let's set the dial for Jean Discovers Tarot. Tell us about that.
Well, I think in 1969, oh gosh, I'm dating myself, right? I got into meditation, TM meditation. And from that, it was just natural, if you looked at my astrology chart, for me to study metaphysics. So now I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I've been studying, I think I picked up the book Reincarnation. That's what we used to call it then, but now it's past lives. And then I started studying astrology with Alan Elkin. I don't know if you know his work. I met him in Santa Fe. I had a health food store. I had a radio show on health, alternative healing, of course. And then I started taking various disciplines of metaphysics. That, of course, led me to psychometry or balancing, at all. And then a metaphysical bookstore opened in 1982, and she brought in a tarot teacher from New Zealand. And I thought, wow, what is this, And I've had one reading in 1971 by a psychic woman she's an Indian woman in Yucaipa, California. And she blew me away. And she did automatic writing. She had read for movie stars in the 30s, Rudolph Valentino, and she had them all on a wall. I loved it. It was mystical and magical, and she told my story. And she also told me that I had the intuitive psychic capabilities, and I went, yeah, great. So let me go back to my California life and everything. So now I'm in Santa Fe, and I've decided to take this course, and I just love the course. And what she did was she had us buy the BOTA, the BOTA, black and white, and the really large cards of the tarot, the major arcana only. And it was a 22-week course, and every week you meditated on the card, you wrote about the card, and you looked every single day for the symbolisms that would appear in daily life. And she said that we needed to connect to the universal language of symbolism. And then we would really be able to tell the story of the tarot, because it's storytelling, yes. And also the symbolisms tend to kick off your intuitive, yeah? So you can go deeper. So, and then we colored the card, watercolored them, of course. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the week, we would come to class and we would have a guided visualization of, say, the Fool, as an example. That's how I learned. And that just totally, wow, turned me on. And so I was studying at the time, too, animal totem symbolism, and doing readings in that, and studying with a Native American shaman in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So it's sort of correlated to, the universal language of totem symbolism as well, nature, exactly. So I just love the correlation of the two. I thought astrology was going to be a path for me. But, I mean, as much as I love it, I just couldn't relate to the chart is there, and yes, it's a picture, but, you know, it has trines and squares and linear um, uh, patterns in it. For me, I'm an art major at the university. And so the art, are you still there? I don't see you moving.
I am. We're slowing down. Let's
Yeah, it could be. I'm supposed to have super fast speed, but you know how that one works.
Yeah,
But
I
we're
think
back.
we've caught up. I can edit that little bit out. Let's give it
Okay, because it
a
was like
minute to catch
you were
up.
there, but you were not there, right? Okay, we're back.
Um, you know what? Let me hang up and reinitiate the call,
Okay.
and then I can just
And I
edit
have
it back.
to tell you, I'm supposed to have super fast speed, but sometimes in the afternoon, I'm with Comcast Cable. On their, there you go, Super Blast, and I find that in the afternoon, and in the morning I'm really great. In the evening, but the afternoon there's some sort of slowness here. But
You know
anyway,
what? We're back. From my perspective, we're back. Are we
I
back?
think we're back.
We're
I
back.
can see you really moving. It's very clear.
Perfect.
So
Okay, we're good. Go ahead. So here, let me interject a question. I just want to go back and get a vibe on this. Okay, 1969, Summer of Love, the year the hippies declared God dead. You know, what an interesting year. Here you
fabulous.
are, an art student in 1969. Now, in my mind, that is archetypal, like just so freaking cool. What was that like?
Um, you know, I was pretty non-hippie, and but I was always open to curiosity and exploration, especially of cultures, because I had lived in Japan my seventh, eighth, ninth, and 10th grade.
Interesting.
So when I went over there in the seventh grade, I thought, you know, I always knew like the only religion on the planet was Christianity at that time. And I went, wow, what is Buddhism? What is Shintoism? What is a tea ceremony? Who are these shamans? Because they have their readers as well. And so I was fortunate, very fortunate, to live in a very, very exotic culture very young, 1957. So I'm in college. I'm studying art at Colorado State University, and then the culture, the hippie culture, came in through my brother. And this is my older brother, 14 months, who actually moved to Kathmandu in 1968.
So is your brother a hippie?
He was a hippie, and he left where we were living after we came back from Japan. We were living in Colorado, and he split for New York and the Greenwich village scene, and he was a musician. And so when he came back to visit, you know, he had this long beard and long, outrageous hair. Can you imagine? My father was a colonel in the Air Force. We all went, wow. I just thought it was so cool. And so I was like right there with the vibe, right? And so he, you know, like he turned me on to some things. And then I moved up to Vail, Colorado, because I wanted to ski every day. And my friends that I met, you know, it's international, would come in and they were, you know, smoking marijuana. They'd been to India. They wanted to do TM. That's when, for me, then I moved to, okay, let me, you know, do a little exploration here, right? And well, I took off, and then after that, very shortly, I ended up in Hawaii in 1969 too, you know, dancing with the Hare Krishnas, uh, you know, studying with the, oops, you're off again.
Yep, give it a minute.
You know, if there's any way I can make it faster, I could, but I
I
can't.
hear you. Me too. Me too. Um,
It's just been doing this. In fact, it's been doing this. I'm going to call him and tell him that.
you
Hey,
should. You should.
my
Yeah.
super blast fast speed every afternoon goes, you know, doesn't connect. So we're back though, right?
I think we're back. Yeah. Go ahead. Again, I'll just edit it. It'll be
Okay,
great.
so moving to Hawaii, dancing with the Hare Krishnas, and learning there were kahunas there. What's a kahuna, right? A kahuna is their shaman. So I'm studying with the shamans and I'm, doing the same, right? 1969. So it was pretty free. You could say that was that really defined the 60s for me. Freedom to express yourself, um, freedom to dance on the beach and dress wild. And people were reading tarot. They were bringing out their cards. They were into astrology, like the psychic network, not the psychic network, but there were psychic studies institutes going on, and people were, opening to the shamanic way, that sort of thing. So that sort of propelled me by the time I arrived in Santa Fe to just, start studying. So that's where, you asked me the question what it was like in 69, and I would define it as freedom. Yeah.
Right.
And
So,
certainly not, maybe for some, I don't know, but most of us didn't really care what society thought of us.
so
That's the kind of freedom I'm expressing.
we don't care what society thinks of us. Do you still embrace that? Do you still
Absolutely. Yes, because, people say, do you tell people you read tarot? Of course. I mean, I've been telling people since 1969 at least, and I just don't understand why they wouldn't want to hear it,
Right.
So I just, if you go about your life with this knowing that you do have the freedom, you can choose that freedom. And I remember a great book, Terry Cole Whitaker. She used to be a minister with the Church of Religious Science and New Thought. I also joined that later on, which helped me a lot in my life, I must say. It's now called the Center for Center of Spiritual Thinking, Center of Spiritual Thought, or something. But New Age thought. Okay, she wrote a book. What you think of me is none of my business.
I've heard that, and
Okay.
that is so brilliant. Now, let me take that and ask a practical tarot question.
Okay.
Okay, what you think of me is none of my business. Okay, we all agree with that. We also, as professional readers, will occasionally have clients who say, what is this person thinking of me? And, certainly we can go to the cards to get that information. From your perspective, understanding that we all have our own ethics, where do you fall for that? How does that work for you?
For me, this is my own personal ethics and opinion. I don't read about others. I'm not allowed into their boundary. Okay. I don't have permission. I would change that question back into, what do you feel they're thinking about you?
Oh.
So what you do is always move it back. It's like a reframing of the question.
Mm-hmm.
But we always move it back to the client, because that's who we're sitting in front of, and that's who we're all about. It's all about the client and what they're feeling, and if they have resentment or if they have, we can have paranoid thinking about that. People are thinking bad about us, and the truth is that's not true at all. And if we do have that thinking, about that, people think, like I'm brass and I'm this or that. And then we look at the tarot, and the tarot says, oh no, that's not true at all. That's just you.
So true, so true. So here's a question then. I just had a brilliant question and it flew out of my mouth.
It'll come back.
Out of my head.
You want to talk about the deck?
Oh, this is just a thought that came to me. So we don't care what other people think about us, but don't you think that it happens that those of us who really are not attached to other people's opinions generally end up being held in high regard? That the less you attach to what someone else thinks, the more likely you are to act in a way that other people will respect.
that is a possibility. I'm not going to say that that's going to be the truth. It's just that, you know, what is his name? Miguel Ruiz wrote that fabulous book. And don't take things personally.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
the 4 agreements.
Right.
So that's one of his first premises. So,
Right.
you know, if we continue, that's what he's talking about, what people think of you. Don't take things personally. And the
Right.
more that we don't take things personally, I mean, of course, if we have ethics and values and if we're on a spiritual path, you know, we'll know that we're being, oh, I need to make amends for what I said yesterday. You
Right.
know, and we are going to work on ourselves because, of course, the tarot asks us really to work on ourselves. It really does.
Yes.
It
Yes.
actually asks us to do that. It says,
Yes.
go there. Okay. So we're committed to going there. We're committed to self-examination. And so we're working on ourselves all the time. And I hope that we're working. I mean, I'm not saying all tarot readers, you know, that's, we also know that there are bad doctors and good doctors,
Right.
you know.
Right.
Okay. And lawyers that are used car salesmen and fantastic, really working for your lawyers. And then
Right.
there's tarotists that are really beautiful, ethnic, not ethnic, but that's true too, ethical, high integrity readers, you know, and they're working on themselves. So in working on yourselves, you can see, and you can also receive criticism about yourself. What you think of me,
Right.
I mean, that's not really necessarily true, but I find that many, Tony Robbins, Anthony Robbins as an example, very successful, and he doesn't care what you think of him. He just goes about his business, focuses on service, helping people, and then, hey, leave your own other thoughts over there. So,
Right. Right. So talk to me, how did you make the transition from doing, skiing and being a student and doing all of that? How did you go professional as a reader?
okay, great question. Um, so I never intended to be a professional reader. I explored the tarot to hone my intuition and to use it as a tool for self-discovery. As a background in art, I really resonated to the pictorial images.
Mm-hmm.
And it was easy for me to work with the symbolisms because of that.
Right.
So for years, I also picked up, for instance, the medicine cards by David Carson. He lives here. And so I worked with the medicine cards and animal totems and the tarot. And for years, I read for only my friends and family.
Right.
And but I kept a journal and I used it as a tool for, you know, my own spiritual path. And then I had a career. I had a radio show, a live interview show. I would interview people in the president of the Acupuncture Association, herbalists, you know, et al. Dr. Oz of the alternative medicine world.
Right.
So they found me and offered me a job in television. So I went with corporate, and so I did. I produced and directed television commercials, and then I moved into television advertising sales because it made a lot more money.
Right.
And also, I like it. It was a win-win. If I can help you increase your business, you know, I love that. So, and all along, I also was interested in the mind, so I became a certified hypnotherapist.
Ah.
And then I studied shamanism with Mayan and Aztec shamans. And then I really was interested in past life regressions. Then I met Dr. Brian Weiss. I took a course with him. Then I met Dr. Roger Woolger, who's a Jungian analyst. And I took many courses with him, and that was his modality I worked in. I gave that away for free for years. Okay. So that was 1993. So eventually, when I left the television world, I went to Seattle. I did some dream workshops. I taught meditation. I went back into advertising, and then I came back to New Mexico. CBS actually had hired me, and And I thought, I really don't want to do work in this corporate world. So I quit. And and then I'm sitting in meditation, and that's the idea for me to open a metaphysical bookstore and go professional.
Ah.
So I didn't have a lot of money to do that, but I invested my life savings, opened a metaphysical bookstore, became a professional tarot reader. I taught tarot there. I had readers every day, clairvoyants, palm readers. In fact, the well-known palm reader who wrote The Idiot's Guide to Palmistry,
Really?
Sarah, he read at my store, Robin Guile. He is incredible. Oh my goodness. And so I had a lot of really fine readers. Plus, over the years, being in metaphysics, I knew Ram Dass and Alan Oken, and I knew all these people that wrote books. And they would come to my store, and I would say, look, I'm here for the people. I don't want to charge $125 for them to have to come. I want to charge $10. So would you talk about your book and give an hour workshop for $10 per person? And they said, yeah. And so we were a teaching center. I would have the Tibetans in. I had this woman, I wish I could remember her name. She wrote a great book on handwriting analysis, and the energy of what does C stand for in a name? What is J? She studied it around the world. She was actually training Louise Hay when she came to my store.
Really?
But Louise Hay told me that. She didn't tell me that.
Right.
So I was really fortunate because a lot of these authors and people who were teaching were on their way to Santa Fe because that's a place to go.
Right.
And they would stop by my store. And I would have large psychic fairs, 10 readers, 100 people would come. So I had the privilege of reading every day. And I had, during my events, let's say when we would teach, say, maybe a Wicca drawing down the moon event, I would give away 3 free tarot readings, 3-card readings at my counter, and Halloween events because they were really big, and all that. So it was a lot of fun, and talk about an experience or a deep immersion into reading tarot as a professional.
Seriously. So what was the name of your store?
The Mystic Bear Bookstore.
Oh, that's awesome. And where was it?
It's in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it was a block from, we just lost it again. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you're lagging.
Really? The old days of mushrooms,
Yeah, it goes. It's not great, but it's.
Okay, you're kind of okay now.
Am I okay now?
Yeah.
Okay, you're still a little laggy.
Am I lagging?
A little bit. Yeah.
I'm gonna call them.
You should call them and complain. Tell them you're not getting your throughput.
I am not.
You're not. You're not.
Okay, so we're back though, right?
Yeah, we're back enough. So what years did you have your store?
So 1999 to 2003.
So fairly recently.
Well, yeah, and then that's when I went professional, when I started teaching, because I had taught workshops and classes all my life. And whether I started in nutrition or customer service or whatever. And so, and meditation. So I started reading professionally, charging $19.99. And then, and I did past life regressions and discover your animal totem, all that. So in 2003, I closed the store, and I picked up the phone, and I booked a ticket for Bali.
Why Bali?
Well, that's, and I think I was 16, maybe 17, I don't know, somewhere like that. I saw the movie, this is a cliche, of course,
South Pacific.
South Pacific.
Bali,
You got it. And that song stuck in my head.
I knew it.
And when I had my son's 32, I didn't know any lullabies. He woke up in the night, so I sang in Bali High. in Oklahoma too. So,
Right, of course.
so, so I've been there all the time. And then my friends here in Santa Fe and Albuquerque, they went to Bali in the 80s. And so a lot of them were 83, 84, 85, and they were exporting things from Bali for their stores and
Right.
things. And so I saw the art and I was fascinated with it. Mostly, I was fascinated with the spirituality and the culture. And I traveled around the world. So, after I lived in Japan, didn't stop me from traveling the world.
Right.
And so I'd always wanted to go. So here I am in a place in my life where my son has graduated from high school. I was a single mother since he was 3 months old. And my store was closed. Now, what was I going to do? And that's why I went to Bali.
Because of a song, because of Rodgers and Hammerstein, you went to Bali.
It called me. Okay, and the truth is, that song called me to Bali. So I went, and when magic happens, I get there, and everything happened. I went for a vacation, not to move there. And so I went for 6 weeks, and everything good happened. It was like when the feeling when the wind is on your back instead of your face.
Right.
Well, everything fantastic happened. And I met a lot of expats who said, come live here. We'll help you get the visa. We'll show you how. By the time I got back to New Mexico, I was going to sell my house, and I needed actually money to paint it. And it just all came. The universe all provided. And what was really interesting, I was working on actually a conference in Bali. I met some people, they're having a conference, and they wanted me to help with their program. And so I'm working from America in this program in Bali, in a spiritual conference. And one of the people I met called me and said, hey, and I've been to their house. Here's a house next to the beach. We want to move over here, but we can't move unless we know you're going to take this. And I said, oh, yes. So when I got there, when I moved to Bali, I had somebody pick me up, an American, take me to my house that I rented online, everything set up for me.
Wow.
So I was there to feel and immerse myself in the culture. And it took about 3 months until I met a Balinese man. I met lots of them, but who was willing to bring me up to their, good for me, and bring me up to his village and really invite me in, invite me into the ceremonies and the magic and the rituals. And all of these, they have what's known as Balians. It's named Balians, and that would be what we would conceive as a shaman.
Okay, so what
four,
is the spiritual culture of Bali?
Good question. What it is very, well, first of all, it's a very exotic, excuse me, culture. It's a living culture. It has been that way. It's a mix of modernism and ancient traditions. Been that way for 1,000 years. And they every single day, they practice their culture. They do it through dance, through performance, through ceremonies, through daily offerings. It's amazing. Now, their culture is primarily Hinduism.
Okay.
But what they did was, when they first, they had animism. Okay. And then the Buddhism came in. And I think it was around for 100 years. And I think Buddhism came in the 8th century. And then within 100 years, a Hindu priest came in. And that's why they actually created their own religion called Shiva Buddhism. What we know as Shiva, they call it Shiva. That's their language.
Okay.
And we're all
very interesting. Okay. So at some point, I guess, while you're in Bali, you decide to create a tarot deck. Is that true?
Yes, and that was never my intention.
Tell me about the process of creating your tarot deck.
So what happened? I was there for 5 years or 4 years. 4 years, yeah. And I'm sitting on the couch, And I get a vision. And again, I never thought about it, never wanted to create my own deck. It was just not my thing. All of a sudden, the vision of the Bali Major Arcana Tarot deck was in front of my face, literally. I saw the Fool. I saw the High Priestess. I saw Ganesha in the Wheel of Fortune. It was displayed for me and shook me off almost off the couch. Now that was 2008, May 2008, and my sister was visiting, and so I was on my way that afternoon to visit my sister at the swimming pool where she was staying, and I she reads the tarot too, of course, and so I said, "Wow, I had this vision of the Balinese tarot, and I'm just drawing it already." By the time I got there, I started doing sketches. Yeah. And she said, "Oh yeah, let's go through each one, you know." And by then I'd studied for 5, like, so 2003, it's 2005. So, 2008. So 5 years. I've been studying the culture, the religion, the symbolism, just because I'm interested. And I've been open to be receiving. So all the high priests and high priestesses, they just kept inviting me in. And yeah, and they would teach me all this magic, and they would teach me all these things about their mythology, and it was great. And so I had all this knowledge plus the intuitive, and it just came out. So my art background, I sat down and I started sketching out. I'm pretty good, but my technique is not that good, right? So I started sketching out. I did the Fool. And for me, my first 3 months in Bali, I walked over to the beach in my second month, and I heard this ding, ding, ding bell. And I looked I lived a block from the beach. So I looked over, and they had built this Bali, and there was a woman sitting there with a hat and all these ritual offerings in front, and she was ringing the bell, throwing rice, and you could see she was in trance. And I thought, what's that? That's a woman, a female priest. And I thought, where on the planet is there living, practicing high priestesses?
Wow.
Bali.
That is so awesome.
It was so awesome. I couldn't believe it. And you'll see her in the high priestess card. That I think. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, you did the sketches and came up with the design of this deck, but you're not the final artist, are you?
No, I'm not. And so what I did was I sketched all the cards, and then I had to find an artist. Well, I had to find an artist that was really good, to one that has some smattering of English. And then my friend Coleman, I had taught him, he was really fluent in English. And I even taught him to read tarot cards.
Wow.
So he was really behind the project, and he found an artist in his village. So I drew the designs. Then I went and bought all the paints and the pens and things like that, because they're very poor, and paper. And then I created a color palette, because I knew that my English, how could I tell them I wanted curly and blue,
Right.
as an example?
Right.
And that's a red orange, and not a blue orange. The color symbology in tarot is very important.
Right.
Okay. So I found this artist, and he came, and I interviewed, and I saw his things. So then I gave him some samples to do. His first one, I gave him some other things I actually gave him 3 cups, which I had no intention to do the minor arcana.
Right.
But I just wanted to do the 3 cups. I also gave him the Empress, which is Very Sri, the rice field goddess of Bali. It's the only goddess they have now taken from the Hindu Indian culture.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's their particular goddess.
So it's their creation, which is so perfect for the Emperor.
Well, it was so incredible. Each card represented their myths.
Wow.
I don't make this up. It's already there.
Wow.
All the symbolisms for the Empress is there every day in Bali through the goddess Devi Shri.
Wow.
Yeah, and everything we know about the card is her
Wow.
in her mythology. And so what happened was we created this triad of Coleman translating, me designing and drawing. He would take my designs up to the village, and he would translate for the artist. And the first part, it was so funny. My first sample, for instance, in the Three of Cups, I wanted the sarongs that the dancers were wearing to be a red pink, for love. And they came back green. And I said, "What's this?" I mean, I knew the words in Bahasa. I said, this is not supposed to. This is supposed to be meta." And he goes, "Well, it looks better in green." So I knew that I had to really get through to this artist that he couldn't change my design.
Right.
So he did try that on many cards. He thought it looked better this way, or so he would leave symbols out.
Right.
So then the card would come back, not quite finished, and I go, "What is that?" And then we'd have to. The village was an hour and a half away. Then we had to go back to the village and say, "Now, Dewa, I love your art. You are a master, but this duck doesn't belong here."
Well, and it's so interesting to hear you say that, because one of my complaints about many modern tarot decks is they really are more art decks than they are symbolism decks. And
my complaint too.
Right. See, I think we're on the same page here. And I've interviewed different artists, and I've asked them, okay, here on the Five of Wands, there's this lizard, why? Oh, I don't know. He just wanted to be there. That makes me sad.
Well, that's because they were artists first, right. And maybe they're not tarotists. Right. That's my feeling. I mean, they do what they do, and I just saw beautiful. There's a beautiful deck out right now. I won't tell you what it is, but and the Hierophant is, you're kidding me. Like the image is gorgeous, but it's set doesn't tell the story.
Right.
And so even as a Taurus, I know the story. Well, what do my clients think?
Right.
But anyway, nevertheless, I am a symbolist. Right. And you'll see on my website, I even write, I'm an organic symbolist. So there you go. So what was really easy, though, it was a very difficult process to translate my design and the right colors, and to actually move the artist along. And but he eventually got it, after about 10 cards. Yeah, it was, and then he went, "Wow, I got it. I got what you're really doing here. This is so cool. This is so Bali. This is so magic. This is so mythology." And he's a brilliant artist, as you can see by the deck. So then we started, it was a flow. And my friend who was translating going, "I really don't want to sit there anymore with because it was a heavy job." And I said, "Well, you don't have to, And he said, "No, I won't come out right." So he was really committed to helping me too. So I really like the number 3 in magic. So there was 3 of us working on this project.
That's fabulous.
It was very, and okay, so here's something really magical. That tarot, there's about 1,500 decks printed in this world. And we have, over the evolution of time, illustrated our decks in various cultures and themes. Right. I mean, there's a Native American deck, a Feng Shui, a Buddhist, a Chinese, a Paris and Prague deck, But in 500 years of Balinese history, this one's never been done. That's really cool. And then a great majority of our decks present the medieval theme. Okay, well, we love that because I'm very Celtic too in my nature, but I'm ready for something
Well,
else.
absolutely. Now,
And like, where can you find a high priestess?
right. And, my comment on the story you tell about developing your deck in Bali and finding the archetypes that we know from our Western culture, finding those archetypes looking differently, maybe, but there, and I think that really gives a lot of credence to looking at tarot from a perspective of symbols and archetypes, because there they are.
I think that's the main theme
Yeah.
here, because they do speak to us through universal language of symbolism. If you I traveled in Thailand and Malaysia, Singapore while I was over there, Kathmandu, and because I'm a symbolist, I look for
Right.
that. And I'm not out there seeking, but I see, oh, that's what I'm feeling right now would be the hangman. I see that. And here's how the hangman came. I saw a Balinese man climb up a tree. That's what they do there. They're like monkeys. My God, I don't know how they do it. They pick. Are we off? Are we okay?
We're good enough. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we're back. There was a little slip in the tissue of fabric of life. I tell you, the veil, the illusion. I'm slipping here. I would see them crawl up. They crawl up trees, climb up trees to pick bananas and coconuts and things like that. And some of these trees are really, really, really 60 feet up, right? And like the coconut tree. So I saw this Balinese man. He put on his little, tied his sarong around his, like a swimming suit, underwear. And he crawls up barefoot. And then while he's up there, he's picking and he's throwing down the coconuts. And then he decides to swing upside down. And just kind of crossed his arm and was looking at the view, the beautiful, exotic, mystical view of Bali. And I thought, so hangman, And so I kept seeing those symbols everywhere I went. And I have been seeing them in the ceremonies. I've been seeing them in the dance and every daily life. I mean, it just was exactly perfect. All the myths spoke to me. In the beginning of my book, I have this quote from Joseph Campbell. And he says, myths are so intimately bound to culture, time, and place that unless the symbols, the metaphors, are kept alive by constant recreation through the arts, the life just slips away from them. In Bali, the myths are alive. They're full of mystic, magical energy.
Wow.
If you went, you too would see this.
Wow.
You can't help
We
but see
will
it.
be able to see it through your major arcana only Bali Tarot deck, yes?
That is, I mean, like one of the first things I say in the book that I'm finishing is that I want to help transport you to the culture of myth and magic. And then in each card, now I'm finished writing the cards. When I first came back from Bali, I just finished the deck in 2011. And then I came back to America because of my family was ill. And then I didn't have a chance to write on anything until the end of 2012. Actually, 2013. Yeah, fall of 2013, I picked it up again. But I have all the cards done, and now I'm just finishing the intro. I develop a Balinese spread, very special. And one thing that's really magical is that I took the deck, the paintings, and I was going to this temple. It's a temple of psychic and channelers, and people read cards and things like that. And they have these ceremonies every 6 months, and I've been there before. And I knew that they had discovered a very special lingam, lingam, a Hindu lingam, and a yoni in the back, only where the priests go, the lay priests. I'm not allowed to be back there. Either as my artist or my friend. But I'm in the ceremony and I've been all blessed and everything. So I think I'm going to go ask them. And they're all looking at me. And, oh, what are they going to think? Who cares?
Right. Back to our
Right?
earlier state.
Back to our early conversation. What are they going to think of me? I really don't care. So they went, okay. So we go back, and the Manchu priests, there were like 7 or 8 of them. They're all in white, and they're all looking at the strange American, with the hair. And she wants to come back where all the spiritual things happen, where they trance, they move people into trance, and they channel, and they do all that stuff. And they go, yeah, okay, let her in. Okay. So you see, I kept being invited in all the time. Even my Balinese friends go, I've never been invited, right? So I would see the Ligam and the Yoni, and I would see these things. So the temple for me became very special. So when I finished the deck and knew I was coming back to America, I wanted the priest of that temple, to charge magic in my paintings.
Nice.
So we asked them, and my Balinese friend said, they'll never do that.
They did.
Because, I'm not a Hindu Balinese. I go, well, ask them anyway. And they said, absolutely. The leader of the temple, and then another lay priest in the village heard I was going to do that, and he asked if he could do that too with me.
Beautiful. Wow.
So the 3 people who worked on the deck, my translator and my artist and myself, we created a ritual offering. They do flowers and, fruit and everything. They prepare them for like 24 hours. And then we met the priest and we blessed and charged up the painting.
Fabulous. So folks who want to keep tabs on what's going on with these cards, and folks who might be interested in having a reading with you, can go to your website.
Absolutely. And I read on Skype. I just did, I have a phone. I do phone readings now. And I do email.
Wonderful. So folks from anywhere in the world can get a reading with you, and can.
I just read for a woman in Australia today.
Perfect. Well, Jean,
so let me just say this real quickly. I did have a publisher here in America approach me to publish the deck, but then they said no because it was just the major arcana. So when I finish, I know a couple of publishers who do publish the major arcana, because the major arcana is read by many tarots around the world. But I believe in reading with a full deck, and then I use the major arcana as a complementary spread. When we start looking at shadow selves, things we want to change, transformational tarot, that's what I use.
Beautiful. Well, I want to thank you so much for being here on Christiana's Psychic Cafe. This is the very first time you and I have met, and I am so pleased to make your acquaintance. I love your message. I love your way of looking at things. I love your cards, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
Thank you. You're doing terrific work.